Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be back at Alcyon Woods, but I want to kind of preface what I'm doing. I'm doing a putters only round, and I wanted to show the different discs that I'm going to be using. I don't think I'm going to be using anything above a speed 3. So this is a KC Pro Whale. It's generally my go-to putter. This is a DX Whale, which I'm going to be using today because it was a little bit cold. I didn't want to break the KC Pro one, because they can get a little brittle when it gets a little bit cold. And then I have an X-Soft Banger GT and a Nova in XT plastic, both of which are kind of straight to understable. The Nova's a little bit more straighter than the Banger. Then I have my Rhyno. This is kind of straight to overstable approach disc. It has a really nice straight flight and doesn't really skip too far. It's in champion plastic. Super comfortable in the hand. Love the thumb track. Then we have the AviarX3. I actually use two of these, a DX one and a Star one. They're basically exactly the same. I use the DX one a little bit more because it was kind of dark when I was out. And then we have an R Pro Pig. This is just basically like throwing a brick that fades really hard. Super good for really, really hard fading shots. And then the last one is a Discmania P3 in D-line plastic, and it is just super flippy and probably goes the furthest, so I'll be using this for drives that need to go pretty far. Have it flip up to flat and glide out. So we go to hole 1, 173 feet as usual. I'm going from the red tees. Especially in a putter only round. I'm using my Rhyno here. It's just about trying to keep your form consistent and good. So I throw this up. And honestly, the Rhyno shapes this way better than anything I usually carry. So I might, when I go to Alcyon, just pop the Rhyno in there just specifically for that shot. And we putt in. We're down 1 already, which is great. That's a good feeling. And we move on to hole 2, just executing to perfection. Hole 2, 406 foot, par 4. I'm going to, like I said, when I need it to go farther than any of my other ones, we're going to throw the P3. And I get a nice flip up, but unfortunately still missing my gap and throwing it down the right gap. It's pretty frustrating, honestly, but I got a pretty good amount of distance, so. But I kind of got into the rough a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot of it. I don't really have anything. I should have just honestly pitched straight out, but I tried to do something really dumb and ended up kicking way far into the rough as that giant truck rolls by. That's what I should have done. I should have pitched just straight out, but I decided not to. And we move on to where I landed with my AviarX3, just way in the rough. I honestly don't even know where the basket is compared to where I am. And so I kind of just pitch out with my Rhyno. At this point I know I'm taking at least a bogey, because that was my third shot, so I'm probably trying to give myself a look for birdie, but if I take a bogey, this is completely my fault. I just totally tried to make a hero shot that I was not qualified to make. So, just off, but a bogey here is fine when you're that far in the rough. It can get, if I had decided to just try to fight through the rough the whole way, it would have gone a lot worse, so. Only losing 1 stroke here, and I'm back to even. So that played into my mentality a little bit too, where it's not so bad if you're coming out even. But, you know, bogey never feels good. Do little dances, and then move on to hole 3, 186 foot par 3. And this is my usual shot, my AviarX3, the blue one. And I thought this was bad. I thought that went way too straight, and I thought it was like 50 feet long, but it turns out I had parked it, so that was nice. So we're back down to 1 down, which is pretty solid. as I grab that bad boy out of there and move on to hole 4. 338 foot par 4. And now I'm just trying to bite off a bunch of distance with the P3. Just hopefully have it flip up to flat and fly straight, but I release a little bit too... Dang, indeed. I release it a little bit too flat and it turns over, drills a tree dead center, and falls straight down though, so it doesn't kick off too far into the woods. Now I take my DX AviarX3 and I'm going to throw it patent pending. And just kind of pure that gap. I think I hit a root or something, so it didn't really get a skip up the hill at all, but I mean, that's the best I could have hoped for. So now, ooh, this is a beautiful shot with the tree, with the sun coming through the trees. I record all of these super early so that I don't get in anyone's way, but this was a particularly nice looking sunrise. That, I think either that big tree or the tiny tree right next to it is right in between me and the basket, so I have to kind of girthy it and throw a really high hyzer putt to try to kind of just dunk it in, and I was so close. I was so close to making that, but you know, a par on this isn't the worst, considering I drilled a pretty early tree. You know, it's not too bad, and I'm still one down, so we can move on to hole 5, 341 feet, par 4. I'm throwing my Nova, and honestly, oops, there's a buggy or a spider web. Honestly, the Nova throughout this round kicked the, as I throw it a little bit inside, but I just threw it a little bit before the gap you need to hit, but it kind of filtered through. But the Nova kind of took the place of my Banger GT, which I'm about to throw just because it's less touchy, I think. And so I got a pretty good reaction, made it back to the fairway. I'm going to throw my Nova to see what that would have done. I hit a tree, but... And in spite of that, the Nova really kind of blowing me away in this practice round. That's also a nice reason to do a putters only round or some insert certain disc only round, because you get to try stuff that normally you wouldn't, because, you know, sometimes you buy more discs than you need and just have to try them. Just missed another one. But, again, par's not terrible. I haven't really hit my putting stride yet, so... I'm still one down, so through all of that, still one down, which is nice, which is great, just great, feels great. Moving on to hole 6, 187 foot par 3. And again, this is the normal shot I do on this hole, just throw an AviarX3 kind of a little bit to the left of the basket and hope it fades out. And I turn this over, I just release it on anhyzer for no reason. And this is also a good reason, another dang, this is also a good reason to do a putter only round, because it can really help with smooth, consistent, controlled angle of release. Because sometimes when you're throwing drivers and more overstable discs, I kind of have to just pitch out. I have nothing. But it can get really, you can kind of take for granted your angles because the discs will do some self-correcting for you. I come out with a par, that's fine. I really like to, ooh, so smooth. I really like to birdie this hole, but whatever. But like I said, I'm just working on my form. I'm honestly not trying to score super well. You know, if I score well, that's a bonus, but it's fine if I don't. As I move on to hole 7, 266 foot par 3. I'm gonna throw my Banger GT, and I got really lucky. Went inside the tree I need to go outside of and filtered pretty far down. Geese! Ton of geese. They kept going for much longer after that. But yeah, I filtered way down. And let's see if I can clean this up for a birdie. Get 2 down on the round. Nope. Cannot. Still haven't gotten my putting down, but in spite of this being a putters only round, that's the putting isn't what I'm trying to work on here. I'm just trying to work on my consistent, smooth releases and placement shots. Because when you're doing, you're not going to bite off as much generally. Practicing my rollers went off into nowhere. But you're trying to practice your placement shots as opposed to biting off a ton of distance on every drive. So this 366-foot par 4, straight uphill again. Throw my P3. I turn it over a little bit. I just kept releasing that too flat with not enough hyzer. I knew what I was doing wrong, but I just couldn't correct in that moment. And this is the opposite mistake I usually make, but honestly the better one. It opens up a little bit on the left side. So now I'm throwing my Rhyno, I believe. I'm just trying to get up towards the basket. I was kind of pinched off on that tree, but I think there was something in the way, so I couldn't throw forehand. So I had to kind of cut my follow through a little bit short. Let's see where that ended up. I mean, I made it with, I think I'm about 10 or 15 feet outside the circle, and I have to go up and over everything again. And that's like kind of I'm not getting as close as I usually do because I'm throwing putters, Usually I throw mid-ranges in a lot of these, and I'm coming up like 40, 50 feet short. But I am cleaning up par most of the time, so that feels good. As we move on to the final hole of this front 9, hole 9, 172 feet. And honestly, this shot is kind of where the Nova, I was like, this is it. Because I get to throw it nice and flat and straight. Has a tiny little bit of fade, but when it hits the ground, it stops. This green slopes away from you, downhill, and so if you hit it a little bit wrong, it can scoot so far down there, you'll be outside the circle in no time. But that Nova just kind of hit and stopped, and so I have a look for birdie. And I capitalize. I think I'm 3 down on the round. Feeling really good going into the back 9. So hope you watch that. Thank you so much for watching this. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that YouTube stuff, and we'll get you hanging out with that turtle. I'll see you in the next thing, folks.
He is in his shell. I almost stepped on him. Oops, sorry, guy. Going on to the next thing.